Today we are joined by Dawn. Dawn, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a mom of 3 daughters. I have a 30-year-old, a 29-year-old, and a 27-year-old. So they're very old, my children. I also have a grandson who's 6.
So you are proof that kids do grow up.
They do eventually grow up.
And they become productive members of society as well.
If you do it right. Dawn, you've done it right.
That was my goal, raise children who were productive members of society. And all 3 of my children have a job. One of them is married, one of them has a kid, and then there's Jessica.
Jessica, your mom loves you. Okay, so usually we start with an icebreaker question that no one has been told the icebreaker question. Brianne especially loves the icebreaker. She's not quite sure why she is not told the icebreaker questions. And I think it's a control play, a power play on my part, but that's for a completely different show.
It's good to,
Or at least a different
it's
episode.
good to have that element of surprise.
Thank you, Dawn. Today, no, oh, Noodle, there you go. All right, so today, our icebreaker question is, watching movies, go out, stay in. Now, I'm not talking about a movie you have. I mean, like when you're going to have to pay no matter what. You know, like we have to, either it's Hulu or Netflix or Amazon Prime or Broflix, I don't know what's out there anymore.
Broflix.
Momflix, that should exist. Momflix should exist.
Yeah, it's called Netflix.
Oh boy.
No, there's Netflix and children's. That's not Momflix.
Yeah. Okay, so there is Broflix. Oh, I see. That's Netflix. Okay, movies. Pros, cons. What do you guys prefer? Where do you guys stand?
I don't care. Either way works for me. My husband likes to go see it on the big screen. But our TV is a big screen, so.
When we live with our phones all day, anything's a big screen.
True.
You know? I'm kind of like,
Very true.
but
I really like going out to the theater, but I think for me, there's just sometimes that I literally don't have the time and or money to go, especially because there's 4 of us. So going is not like 10, 20 bucks. Going is like,
okay, yes. And
because there's snacks required, there's drinks required.
that's true. That is a factor.
It costs us $50 when we go to the movies.
You know,
It costs us
yes.
$50 for 6 months of Netflix.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so-
Yeah, no, I definitely hear that. All of our friends who,
And we've had several of our creative partners who work with us here on the channel. So I will say, I sometimes feel like they get ambushed because they'll say, you know, please, 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 let us take you out, you know, just like to Sherry's or Denny's, you know, one of these local, because it's a late shift that people are here. So something 24-hour. I don't think anyone understands even the lowest possible menu item, how much it costs to feed 2 adults and 2 teenagers.
and that's how I feel about the movies.
I could take my kids to Sam's when Sam's was around. and
Yeah.
I could feed our whole family for under $20 at Sam's. A
Right.
slice of pizza and a soda,
Yes,
$20.
yes,
I could not do that anywhere else.
yes. It's Costco.
Yeah.
$1.50 for a huge hot dog with a bun, any condiments that you could imagine, and a large soda that's refillable. I mean, I'm not saying this is healthy food, but it
It's
is an
food.
occasional fast lunch when you've got a ton of other errands that you're doing. I don't
And
know,
popcorn at the theater is usually starting at like $5-6 for a small, which is,
yeah,
I mean,
minuscule. I feel like they
really
take 3
tiny.
kernels and put them in there and hand them to you. I'm kind of like, a tablespoon of popcorn, please, thanks.
Butter.
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
I think we easily spend probably $70-80 taking the 4 of us.
Yeah.
Just not dinner or anything, literally just the ticket for the movie
Mhm.
and some type of beverage, candy, popcorn, whatever.
So I think basically what Dawn and Brianne are telling me here is that this icebreaker sucks because it's a question with only one answer. If you have the money, sure.
Well, and
Go
sometimes the
out.
time. Sometimes we have the money, but we
Yeah.
literally don't have the time.
Yeah.
You know, because some of them stay in the theater for 3 months because they're doing fantastic because they're like the summer's blockbuster,
Yeah.
you know, crazy hit. Some of them are only there for 3-4 weeks maybe.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And sometimes we just don't have the time and I'm like, when did that movie come out? Why didn't we go see it?
Yeah. No, I do remember
Yeah.
a couple of times when you
I
and
have a
I,
list.
yeah.
I have a list on my phone that movies I'd like to see.
Yes.
And because I don't remember that I've seen movies, because I'm not a movie kind of person,
Yeah.
I put a check mark next to them when I've seen them.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes.
That way I have a list of movies that I know I wanted to see.
Yeah.
And, oh yeah, I saw that one. See, look, on this date, and I put the date next to it.
Oh, no, yeah, well, you wouldn't, that would be horrible to pay for it all over again and then be like, wait a minute, why do I know everything that's about, she's gonna die. Oh, okay, I've seen this. No, that would not be good.
I watched Made in Manhattan yesterday
Yeah.
that I recorded because I didn't remember seeing it. And as I'm watching it, Lauren said, I saw that with you. I'm like, I don't remember seeing this.
Do you not have a check mark and a date
I-
for Made in Manhattan?
No, because I started it way after Made in Manhattan.
Yeah, because
It's
they came out
not
like really
But I-
early 2000s.
It was 2008.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it, you know, I vaguely remember seeing it.
Mhm.
About halfway through the movie, I go, oh, I remember seeing this.
See,
But I didn't remember what happened, so
Right, yeah.
it's good for me to rewatch.
Yeah, exactly. If you enjoyed it, I think it's funny because, you know, Dawn, we haven't really dove in here, divin, oh my gosh, forget it. It's too hot in here already, you guys. But in terms of mental health issues and what people face and this kind of thing, but I have not been diagnosed with any kind of anxiety-related issue. So that being said, I have to weigh in on this icebreaker to say, hands down, though I have not regretted going to see any movie on the big screen with you, Brianne, or with the kids, that experience afterward, boy, am I glad when it's done. It is perhaps one of the things we do at least once a year, go out to a movie theater, that causes me such incredible, the only thing I can explain it is as an anxiety attack. Heart races, don't want to go, kind of, even though I never do, I try to think of like excuses how I could get out of it without hurting anybody's feelings, which that doesn't happen when you have a family of 4 and 2 parents. You don't say, you should just take them. I'm like, because that's then a chore, not a family outing. I don't know if this started, because I have thought about it, I don't know if it started after the shooting, that one particular shooting, I think it was at a Batman film. I don't know if it started there, or if it's just as I moved out from being an isolated novelist into being a filmmaker, but still my community is very controlled, very creative people, even though we work with incredibly diverse political and religious and even kind of socio-political beliefs with the kind of folks that we work with, because we're kind of all over the spectrum that way. Still, as the two women who run the company, we haven't ever experienced any like homophobia or anything like that. I don't know if that's what I'm afraid of.
Or if it's hard because having a young adult son on the spectrum, I'm afraid something's going to go wrong there. And often something does go wrong, and I know that as parents we mitigate that and help him maneuver through those situations. I don't know if it's that kind of thing. It's like I don't get anxiety when we go to the grocery store. I mean, there's been crazy stuff that's happened literally at our Walmart where they've cleared the Walmart out. Some guy in automotive threatening to blow the store up, and suddenly they're emptying out the store without telling them. We had this is Washington State, you guys, and this year we had a tornado hit our 24-hour Walmart.
Now, I'm sorry I laughed there. It's only because it's a 24-hour Walmart, and that's already controversial enough, Walmart. And the reason that I even bring
Most
that up.
Walmarts now are 24 hours.
Yes, there we go. Thank you.
I worked at Walmart when we closed at 10 o'clock.
Really?
In Illinois, it wasn't a super Walmart,
Just a regular one.
just a regular Walmart. It closed at 10 o'clock.
Ours was a regular one, but I think someone was playing the app and they upgraded it. They didn't press B.
They, while I was working there, they went 24-hour during Christmas holidays for like a week. And then it went back to closing at 10 o'clock.
Wow.
Now I believe that Walmart is a super Walmart.
Our family
And it's open
would
24
not
hours.
survive without a 24-hour grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because again, I think this is the third time I've said this in this episode. We work a night shift. But so I don't know what it is. So just in the absolute full transparency and disclosure, yeah. I mean, like I would, if I were controller of the universe, I would just close movie theaters, which is like ironic since a big part of what we do for a living is make feature films. YouTube is like this side path to make sure that people know that we exist. It's almost like a platform that almost just does little snippets of larger issues that you find explored in our films. But I'm kind of like, yeah, and I would just like people to watch at home. Here's my films, watch them at home. There we go. But yeah. I mean, overpriced candy, I guess, tastes good, but we're not really supposed to have
Does it though?
I buy candy at Walgreens on the way to the movie theater.
Oh, John.
But
You're
I buy
Brianne's
a
kind of
giant,
woman.
I buy a giant popcorn
Right.
and an even more giant soda
Well, and you have to
Which
get the
I
giant
drain.
popcorn.
before the movie is over.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm one of those moms where
And then I
like,
have a
I'm
pocket
watching the
full of
kids.
Twizzlers.
You better be eating that. That better be gone. That was $90.
Right.
Oh my god.
I mean, why aren't, the popcorn is giant, the really, really giant one. At least it I don't know if it's $18 giant, but
There's
it is big.
this thing called dinner and a movie.
Yeah.
We don't do dinner. We just go to the movie and eat a tub of popcorn.
I thought that's what people meant when they say dinner and a movie.
No, they go to dinner like at Applebee's or a place
To maybe
to eat
stop
dinner.
themselves from getting.
Eating
It's
the
never
popcorn?
stopped us. It's never ever stopped us.
But popcorn
Oh
though
my
is
gosh,
so
yes.
bad for you.
Have
Yeah.
we ever asked either of our kids, are you guys too full for candy?
Never. Because it would be rude. We know the answer. Right. No, that's absolutely true. Okay.
I take my 6-year-old grandson to the movies, and his mom has trained him to not eat popcorn. He gets a fruit snacks, Welch's fruit snacks, at the movie theater.
One pouch?
It-
Oh, it's like the little bag.
It's the big one,
I know,
yeah.
Yes,
It's a big
okay.
bag,
It's
yeah.
gonna be like,
But
geez,
yeah,
Mom,
that's
it's a
what-
2-hour
that's what
movie.
he-
He gets 5 fruit snacks? No, okay.
That's what he eats.
Wow. I mean, that's not very American, but okay. I mean, all right, see, there are healthy ways to do the
So-
movies.
I think he eats some of Mom's popcorn sometimes.
Uh-huh.
She
Oh, so
doesn't-
Mom gets
She
popcorn.
doesn't buy a giant tub of it.
Yeah.
I've gone to the movies with her. She doesn't. She eats a little popcorn, and he gets a fruit snacks.
Okay. I mean, it's also a money saver. I mean, let's not lie. All right. I think we're probably ready to dive into our
Mhm.
main topic today. So I would say all three of us are very passionate about this topic. Dawn, I think you are professionally passionate about this topic. You have spoken nationally about this,
I have.
and this is like a big part of what you do, not just as a mom, but as a human being. So tell us a little bit more.
I'm gonna start from the very beginning.
Okay.
Of that part of my life. So I was looking for a job, and I had worked with special needs kids in my teenage years. And so I went to the phone book. This was in the early 90s. I went to the phone book and I looked up Children's Home. I found Children's Home and Aid Society of Illinois. We lived in Illinois at the time. And I thought maybe they would have a children's home that I could go work with. Maybe there was kids there. And so I called them up and they said no, they were a social service agency. I had no idea what a social service agency was. And so I asked, and they told me one of their services was parenting classes. And I was like, well, I could probably use some parenting class. That's why I needed to get out of the house to get a job, was because the kids were making me crazy. At the time I had 2 babies. My husband was in the Air Force. He was working full-time. He was working full-time in the Air Force. He was going to school full-time and had a part-time job. So I was basically a single mom with these 2 babies, and they were making me crazy. So parenting classes, I convinced my husband that we needed to do this. He took a break from school. We went to parenting classes, and the teacher of my parenting classes, her name was Elaine, and she was the regional coordinator for Parents Anonymous, which is a self-help support group. And she knew that I lived on the Air Force Base, and could I please help her start a group on base. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Mm-hmm. She talked to me about this for the 12 weeks or whatever it was that the parenting classes were, and finally she convinced me that I could help her start this group. So that's how I began my journey. I did that for a while. I started a group on base with Elaine's help, and Elaine convinced me also to do many other things. By the time I left Illinois, I had talked to senators and congresspeople in the state, at the Capitol. I had become a member of the board of directors for the state Parents Anonymous, the agency that supported Parents Anonymous. And I had gone with her to trainings and actually had told my abuse story to hundreds, if not thousands of people. So that was my work in Illinois. And then I moved away from Illinois and moved to Texas. And I was hooked up with some people in Texas, or on a national level, called the Round Table. And they were states that had moved away from Parents Anonymous, but they were doing a similar work. And so I became a parent leader with the Round Table, which became Circle of Parents. And so I did that for as long as I was in Texas, and then after I moved up here to Washington. Through all of that, I became involved with Friends, which was the National Resource Center for Child Abuse Prevention. And so there's this grant that through the government called the CBCAP grant, which is Community-Based Child Abuse Prevention, and Friends was the resource center for them. And so with my work with Circle of Parents and with Friends, I helped develop a program, a curriculum called Parent it has left my brain just for a second. But it was a training that we brought states in, and we taught parents and practitioners how to work together, parents and agencies how to work together. So I traveled around the country and I did that training for many years, probably 10. Or 15, I don't even know.
A lot of years, guys.
Yeah.
A lot of years.
It was called PLAT training. That's what it's called. Anyways, it was PLAT training.
Okay,
Um,
we're moving on.
so anyway,
guys.
that's my background, where I came from. You know, when I was trying to figure out what I needed to do with my life, because the kids were making me crazy, there was abuse that happened. I just, you know, there was things that made me feel like I needed to get out of the house. I needed to be away from the children because I was gonna hurt them. You know, I'm not gonna say I ever really. We talked earlier about how whatever abuse there is, it's gravity.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a little bit of abuse, but there was a little bit of abuse in my life. You know, that I knew that I needed to change. And I didn't know how to change it, which is why parenting classes happened. So that's my story.
Well, I mean, first, thank you, because I mean, I think that honesty is incredibly vital. Before the cameras were rolling today, you and I were talking about stigma regarding other things, but also about just needing any help with parenting at all. Like we're all magically born.
There's no book.
There's no.
Yeah.
I've looked, and I gotta tell you, the books that I have found, who boy. Like so roomy.
That's very true.
My gracious. And I think that truthfully, why there truly can never be a one-size-fits-all parenting manual is because children are not one-size-fits-all.
And parents aren't either.
No, absolutely not. It has to be.
I parent my children in a vastly different way, probably, than you parent your children.
I think it's true, yeah.
That's because we have different personalities. Our
Absolutely.
children have different personalities. Even the 3 children that I have, they are vastly different people.
Thank you, yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's Jessica, and then there's who's very introverted. Okay, and then there's Robin, who is not, and then there's Nikki, who is, but she's totally different than either of the other two.
Right.
I mean,
Even
we're
children who are similarities, that are
Yeah.
similar in some ways. It's, you know, I always thought the best thing is just absolutely fair across the board. Everything is the same. And I'm like, wow. As the children got older, I'm like, no, these 2 children need to be parented completely differently. And I don't just think that's because,
you know, Maxwell is on the spectrum and Faith isn't, that it actually has nothing to do with that. But even that influenced so much of how I saw things until it was Brienne actually saying, you know, our daughter is dealing with some stuff. No, it's not autism, but she's dealing with other things. And as parents, we need to be there for her for these things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like if it isn't autism, it wasn't there. I mean, you know, it really did. And I mean, this is like a recent thing within the last 5 years of me going, wow, okay, yeah, sometimes I need to work with our daughter as one of her 2 moms with kid gloves around these things, because these things are big things to her in the way that I would never. Okay, Max has a incredibly developed, incredibly ingrained, actually that's the word I was searching for, disgust of grapes. And like, yeah, like, you know, but I mean, like, they cannot be on the table, the actual grapes. People cannot eat them around him. But also, like, they can't be, like, on a bag, like artwork.
okay, I mean, it would be like,
imagine
so
that
disgusting.
with glitter.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
My youngest child has that
yeah,
with glitter.
yeah.
She works at IKEA because there is no glitter there.
Yeah, see, no, it's like, it is, it's like, he has no idea when it started, nor do I.
Mhm.
I mean, we weren't a big grape family, so it's like, he never like choked on one or anything like that. He finds them absolutely disgusting. Not the taste, the look of them.
Yeah.
So, it's like little things like that.
And like, and grape juice is fine, grape jelly is fine.
Absolutely.
It's actually like raw
Yeah,
grapes.
and all of that just to say, absolutely, parenting is not easy.
Yeah.
And sometimes, we can sit here and laugh it off. I mean, yeah, if we were crappy parents, I guess that's what we would be sitting here doing. Ha 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 ha! My kid has an unduly fear of glitter. Ha ha ha! Grapes! That's hilarious. It's not hilarious.
We have a can of air that we spray everything, so she lives in Dallas. We
Yeah.
live in Washington. When we mail things to her, we spray the envelope and everything in the envelope or whatever the package is
Yeah.
that we're sending to her with the can of air to make sure there's no glitter on it. Just to make sure.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like just in case you've like randomly done crafts.
Or we've walked through the card section at Target, for instance,
Oh, yeah,
or
that's
Walmart,
true.
or
You got a card that was touching another card.
or gift wrap, or
And you guys, you're not delicate snowflakes here, okay? Dawn and Brianne and I, we get it. We get how ludicrous this is. But what I don't believe is hitting your kid until they claim they're not afraid of it anymore. Shame on you. Oh, here I am being judgmental. I'm not supposed to do that on this show. Or shouting at your child that they're being unrealistic. I'm not trying to make a sensitive and what is that? You guys, I'm afraid of the sensitive snowflake. I'm not trying to harbor this. Maxwell is incredibly brave about an enormous amount of things that would make grown men pass out. The kind of medical procedures that he's just had to say, no, I understand it needs to be done. Just do it. Shame on all of you who try to get your kids to believe that as adults, we don't have any unrational fears. Because I'm sorry, but we all do.
I'm scared
At
of the
least-
dark.
Mm-hmm. No, so am I.
You've talked about that
Yeah.
on this show.
Yeah.
Yes.
I see bugs in the dark.
Mm.
I'm petrified. There's no bugs there, but it's dark and therefore there are bugs there.
We're human beings. Psychologically,
I get it.
it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Woo, boy. That one just really gets me. That particular thing. But okay.
Yeah.
So, all right.
So beating your children is a bad plan.
Yes.
Making them be
Screaming
terrified
at them.
of you is a bad
Bad
plan.
plan. Both of those things, abuse. Again, we are not going to veer into spanking. Totally different episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think we already know where I stand on it. So I know we only have a little bit more time in this segment, but we can always run a little over. But Brianne, would you like to share a little bit?
I think it's a tricky topic.
Because I feel like for a lot of people like me, like when you're growing up, you don't know what is normal. You don't know what everybody else's lives are like. And so I know that I've come to realize that there's a lot of things about me and about my personality that are a result of some emotional abuse that was going on when I was a kid.
That definitely wasn't intentional, and it wasn't, any like purposeful, there wasn't any harm behind the intent, but it did happen and it did affect me. And I think there are a lot of people who kind of come to that as they're growing up, like into their 20s. I'm 30 now. And kind of just like figuring that out and navigating that and just kind of connecting the dots between like, oh, I do this because of that kind of thing. And it's definitely made me aware of that. Like that in particular, I think because I have experienced it in my own life, I'm definitely like always thinking, okay, if I use this tone of voice, am I trying, am I literally just talking to my kids, or am I trying to manipulate them or affect their emotions so that they do whatever it is that I want them to do. So I know that I definitely keep that at the forefront whenever, there's anything, any issue going on, any conflict going on.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Any just like general parenting, which sometimes is conflict and sometimes isn't. But I think that's the big one for me. I did grow up as, I think I was kind of at the beginning of when in school we were talking about abuse a lot. So people were talking about, like if it's your bikini area, nobody should be touching there, that's private, what good touching is and bad touching is and that kind of thing. And we got that from like preschool on. And so I feel like that was talked about a lot. There was a lot of, between like school and doctors and that sort of thing, people talking about, do you feel safe in your family? Making sure that kids had time away from their parents to answer those questions, which I think that's fantastic. But I think that there's other types of abuse like neglect or emotional abuse that really weren't talked about. And I really liked that you were able to define, these are the different types, and all of these are not like here's the number one type and here's like the least bad type, but here they are standing next to each other.
Yeah.
You mentioned something that you, at the beginning, that you said that you didn't know what normal was. I didn't know what normal was. I thought everybody got spanked. The spankings that I had were not just spankings, they left bruises. And I went to school one time, I was in 5th or 6th grade, and I had bruises from my kneecap to the middle, from the back of my knee to the middle of my back. And one of my classmates told me that I shouldn't have bruises like that I couldn't go home, that this was not allowed.
Yeah.
I didn't know that this was not normal until I was 12 years old. And so that was when I started reacting differently to the way that my parents dealt with my behavior.
And if that classmate is out there somewhere, thank you.
I actually have talked to that classmate.
Really?
Her father was the chief of police.
Oh.
As an adult, I went back and lived where this happened, and I found her, and I told her that she had made a difference in my life, and she kind of just blew it off, but I hope that she understands that she
Absolutely.
made a difference in my life.
That's right. That doesn't diminish what a difference she made. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
She really, I have a vast different understanding. And not only did it change my life, it has changed my sister's life, her children's lives, my children's lives, and everyone that we come in contact with.
It's a huge domino effect. Yeah.
So when I retired, they sent me a box with letters from all of the colleagues that I had, people that I didn't even know that I had had an impact on, and they were thanking me for my work. And I didn't even know some of the, I probably was on conference calls with them or whatever, but I didn't know them, but I had an impact on them
Yeah.
just by being me.
I think that, and isn't that what each of us want to do in some way, is impact someone in a positive way. I think that's always why sometimes I'm always stunned. When we talk about, it's this normal thing now. Even, our teenagers, working here, they'll be like, oh, internet trolls. They've got nothing better to do. And I'm like, the fact that someone would say some of these things, especially, and I don't mean just like the casual thing that I honestly just think like, they literally don't even think. It's one or two words, some profanity or poking fun. It's calling someone stupid or fat. Or actually the one that we get the absolute most, to be honest, is just so gay. And which has nothing to do with sexuality. just on the most random videos that have nothing to do with sexuality.
You're right, it is very happy.
Right, and I'm like, that's fabulous. Yes, we are happy here. But I think that healthy, well-adjusted human beings do want to have a positive impact on the people around them. And I think that it feels so wonderful when we find out that we have.
But it's just so bizarre, the knowledge that I'm making an impact on people that I don't even know that I'm having an impact on.
Yes, yes.
You know,
We think we're not making a difference, and There we, actually, it even goes back to,
You reconnecting with that classmate, which, she just kind of blows you off. Like, okay, that's okay. It was just a nothing moment for you, but guess what? It's still super valid and a positive thing for me because you created this massive domino effect, and I still thank you. And that's what I kind of like, is that it is true. Someone may have a massive. I reconnected with one friend from, not friend, a classmate from elementary school. I don't think we knew each other well enough to really call each other friends, but she always seemed to have my back. Whenever things would go, she would kind of step into my circle, just be like, why are you guys treating her this way? Back off. And it's like she was mature enough, though not older than me, she was mature enough to realize this is not the right group of people for you. These people are regularly taking advantage of you, and like this outside smarter force had to come in and get them off my back. And I reached out to her. I came to Facebook very, very late, but when I finally was on Facebook, I'm like, oh, I can find people I used to know. And I felt so grateful that she'd grown up and become a doctor, hadn't changed her name. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, thank you. And she's like, I do remember you. Yes, but okay, very nice. I mean, she was still very sweet, but kind of like,
Yeah.
and I think for her, hi Mary, for her, it was just like, that's how she treated everyone. You know, she was always sticking up for the underdog. She was always sticking up for people.
so, as my personal experiences with this topic, and I'm gonna just touch on this very, very briefly because I want our expert here today to talk about prevention, even though I do think, I will say right now, just those definitions. Just those definitions, because like you said, knowing. And parenting classes, there should be no stigma and there should be no shame. That's another one. Because actually some of the books, going back to that whole book thing, because we do have a book division and because publishing is where I began, I do have very strong feelings about books. Some of the parenting books out there I actually consider absolutely toxic. And I think some of the practices that they try to get parents to do actually fall within the definitions that Dawn has given us today. So I grew up, you know, like in the 70s, and then was a teen in the 80s. Is that about correct? And I'm just trying to bring out for this time. My experience was
Into the early 90s.
Yes, there we go. So before I was 10 years old, I was taught by multiple lifetime experiences, 3 lifetime experiences, that something wasn't abuse, it was sex. And sex was something that, you know, hey, girls have to put up with it. And then when I was 10, I was taken away for the summer by my great uncle, who had previously sexually abused some other members in the family who were active in my life and part of the decision, part of the people who came to the decision that this man would be allowed to take me for the summer. So for me, I will say, as an adult woman, my issues are less about dealing with what I experienced that summer than dealing with those people still being in my life. Not the great uncle who has passed, not his wife who witnessed everything and allowed it, but the family members in my life today. So I am not a great person to talk about it's okay not to speak up.
That's one that will pretty much set me off. And I'm not talking about kiddos here coming forward. Okay, I understand how scary that is. All of the instances that happened before I turned 10 and my uncle had me for the summer, all of those other instances, I came forward immediately. I came forward to the parents of the boy the first time. She said, bullshit, you're lying, you're a little slut. I went forward to 3 different parents, the mother, father of the child, and my own parent the second time, and was told, you're making it up. Go back to bed. Literally sent back upstairs with this boy and the 3 sisters who were also ritually being raped. So I totally understand if a child says, I was afraid to come forward.
As an adult, I have less patience. So that is the only thing I was going to share, because I felt that, I think we've all heard rape and abuse stories. I don't see violent assault as different from childhood rape. I don't see gradations or anything like that. But what I do see is a responsibility of adults to protect children. I do see us as stewards of children, all children. Now, the law is not behind me on that one. When Max and Faith were young, actually I don't even know if Faith was born yet, I got into a physical altercation which was hysterical with a very large man who hit his son so hard that the child went spilling onto a produce display, and the produce went everywhere, like that hard. And I was the one being charged with assault because I went after the father. And so I understand that stewards of all children everywhere actually, in the eyes of the law, means I'm a nosy mom who can't keep her business to herself. So my personal experiences aside, Dawn, abuse prevention, education, you've got it covered.
Education,
Knowing what abuse is.
most certainly.
Abusers are
You
not
have to know
always
what
these
abuse is.
villainous.
You know, I read a statistic.
Every 15 minutes, a kid is being abused. Every 15 minutes in the United States, a kid is being abused. Another statistic that are, as far as who does the abusing, everybody in all socioeconomic, all races, all everything. Everybody is capable of abuse. And everyone, there isn't one that is more prevalent. Rich people abuse, poor people abuse, middle class abuses, all religions abuse. I'm not saying everyone abuses, but every
The potential is-
demographic.
the horrible potential is there.
Right.
Yeah.
And every demographic has abused and will probably continue to abuse because it's a non-ending cycle. As far as what we can do to prevent it, we can know what abuse is. We can reach out when we see abuse happening, not physically, obviously. I'm sorry. Verbally, I like to use humor. When I see a mom losing it in the grocery store, I say, man, I hate it when my kid does whatever, or whatever. Y'all might have noticed I have a blue bracelet. This blue bracelet says Prevent Child Abuse. And on the other side, it has a website, preventchildabuse.org, and that will take you to Prevent Child Abuse America, where there are tip sheets, and there are also tip sheets on Circle of Parents website and on the Parents Anonymous website. You can just type into Google
Parent tip sheets, and it'll give you parent tips. I know Circle of Parents has parent tips in English and in Spanish. So,
Yeah.
that's an awesome thing. So, my point is that if you're feeling stressed, find help. There's lots of places to get help. There's support groups. I grew up with support groups. When I say grow up, I had my parenting happen while I was doing support groups. I went to support groups. I led support groups. I supported support groups. When we moved to Washington, I tried to get my daughter to go to support group, and she went with me a couple of times. And she said that, she's a new generation. She said that she can get the support that I got at support groups online. Which is, I get it,
Different people need different things.
Right, and that's
Right.
Yeah.
okay.
So there's help out there everywhere.
Yeah.
You just have to look for it.
And don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid to get help. And just because you're getting help doesn't mean CPS is going to come in and take your kids.
Right.
The fact that you're getting help really shows that you're on top of things.
Yeah,
I got help because I knew that the way that I was treating my children was not the way I wanted to treat my children. And so I went out and figured something different out. My parents don't always
Realize that the way that they did things was not the correct way. I figured out that that wasn't the correct way, and they are very supportive of me now, of the way that I raised my children and the way that my sister is raising her children. So it's I didn't have so much sexual abuse in my life. I had more physical and emotional abuse in my life. And so I have a little bit of a different, different than you. But
I don't know, I see it as so, because it's
it's
like,
all the same.
I
Abuse
feel like
is abuse.
abuse is
regardless of what
abuse.
kind.
And it's just, it's fascinating to me, and I think that is why I really did want to focus on.
for me, it is actually the emotional element that has been far more damaging, because I know
Absolutely.
I know the statistics. I have incredible relationships with male friends. I do not think I grew up to be a lesbian because I was sexually abused. Anything like that. It's the emotional, why didn't you stop this? No, why didn't you protect me? And how do I live with that now with a family member? Do I estrange myself from that person? Do I take that person away from my children? This is
that was a big thing when I had Jessica, and I was a single mom, and I was going to go into the military. And the recruiter came to my house and sat down with my parents and I, and he said that my custody of my child would have to go up to somebody else while I was at basic training or whatever. There needed to be a backup plan for my child, and I said, well, I don't have anybody who can take custody of my child, because I was certainly not going to leave my child with my parents. They have come around to understand that the way that they dealt with me and my behavior was not correct, and I have allowed my parents to take my children. They've traveled, all three of my kids have traveled in the RV with my parents around the country, and my parents understand now different ways because I taught them different ways to deal with children. So it is true. It's
Sometimes
really
we
all
teach
about
our parents.
education, and knowing that there are resources out there to help you.
Well, Dawn, thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
I know that this was a heavy topic, you guys. It was a heavy episode, but I think it was so incredibly important. And every day as a mom, as we all know, isn't all sweetness and light. But I think it is so important.
And this might even be a controversial thing to say, but I think that if you find yourself in a moment with your kids where you are resenting them, that is your first red flag. It's always like in our household we say throwing a mug or an object is just a step away from throwing a punch. We don't throw things in this household, but also, as I think we've said on previous episodes, we don't raise our voice to our children at all. But again, we have Maxwell and Faith.
Maybe some kids, they blatantly ignore unless a parent raises their voice. Every parenting is different.
I was a yeller. I've always been a yeller. I have a very big voice. I scare people. My nieces are scared. When they were little, they were scared of me because of my big voice. I didn't yell at them, but I have a big voice. So I have found that with my children, if I whisper, it gets their attention way better than yelling.
There are ways, guys, but look for the red flags in your life, okay? Because your red flags may be different from our red flags. Look for those red flags, and that's when you want help. Like Dawn's saying, looking for help is not going to get your kids taken away by CPS, but you have to get help at the red flags. Actually, you know what? Get help at any point. Because no
And-
matter what, be a steward of your children. Put your children's needs before your own.
And I also wanted to say something about parenting classes.
Yes.
So the hospital usually provides parenting classes before the child is born, and they tell you how to take care of a baby, which is all well and fine, but babies grow up,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to know how to deal with a child
Babies
when
are
they're not
easier than
babies.
teenagers.
When they're teenagers, when they're in their
Yeah.
elementary
When they're
age,
7 and they've learned everything and they want to tell you every single thing.
and they want everything at the store, especially if it's a Lego. You know? Yeah, you need to know how to deal with that, not just changing diapers and feeding babies. So look for advice about everything. Not
Don't be
just
afraid, don't be
babies.
embarrassed. Parenting classes are a totally cool thing. And then with a parenting class, you can go, oh, okay, I can take this home right now and implement it.